Hey, what's going on, No Nation? It's your guy, Kelvin Hunt, editor of ChopChat.com. Welcome to the Built for Playmakers YouTube channel where we talk FSU all day, every day. Hope you guys doing well. Been up early this morning, post early signing day edition. Had to get some blood work done. Got a physical next week. So, guys, if you are not doing that, make sure you get that done each year. Look, you got to make sure you're going to be healthy. Right. So, what this video is going to be about is explaining or giving my opinion on why FSU has lost certain players at the end of recruitments on early signing day. And I know there's people in the industry that, I saw a couple of videos yesterday and people were, kind of baffled or putting out some really crazy narratives out there that really make no sense whatsoever. I work in college admissions. So basically, I've been in that industry for 20 years. And so in a nutshell, I do recruit students to college, so to speak. So I think I have some authority to speak on this. And it is all about relationships. If you listen to Mike Norvell, he talks about the importance of building those relationships. And so that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, if you wouldn't mind, liking this video, subscribing if you haven't. I try to be a little different than most of your FSU YouTube channels. We look at things all across the board and just give different aspects of how things work. If you wouldn't mind liking this, and we're gonna go ahead and get into it. But yeah, so whenever you're talking about what has happened over the last 3 years, so FSU has lost their top ranked recruit each of the last 3 years. So going back to Travis Hunter in 2022, you had Keldrick Falk in 2023, and then you had KJ Bolden this year, right? And so when you look at these situations, they all have some commonality in them. You got a guy that's been committed for a little while, and at the very least, you have a relationship that has spanned years. I mean, FSU they were the first school to offer KJ Bolden in 2020 during the pandemic. And so, you spent time, with this kid and their families. Same with Travis Hunter, same with Keldrick Falk. And, and I know people will talk about, the coaching staff, this and that. But really, when it comes down to it, it's the relationships, right? And just like when you're dating someone, I mean, really, because when you're talking about football recruiting, I mean, really, it is kind of like you're dating someone, right? So if you look at just dating in general, when I'm talking about, men, women, or whatever, if you want that relationship, first of all, both of you want you have to want to be in a relationship for that relationship to prosper, right? Okay. So if you have that, then you'll generally have, probably two people working together to make the relationship work, right? And FSU has shown evidence of that. I mean, overwhelming evidence that they're capable of closing players. I want to put it out there as far as like the coaching staff not being able to close. That's bull. Listen, you have, and I guess people will say, well, they can't close top players. Listen, you have players that were ranked 5 stars. Landon Thomas was a 5-star. Cameron Davis was a 5-star. Luke Crummerhope is basically a 5-star. You had Hakeem Williams, who they signed last year, was a 5-star. So the narrative that they can't close top players is just BS. Just because some random dudes decided to drop a player for whatever reason, a couple of spots to take a star away, does not mean the staff cannot close, right? So let me just say that. But whenever you're talking about, relationships, those are relationships that the staff and this young man and his parents, guardians, and the camp or whatever, they've worked together, and obviously they have a common goal. The staff wants the player wants to be at FSU. That's it, right? So when you talk about the players that have flipped, I mean, really, it comes down to a couple things. So you have the staff. Obviously, they're interested in the player, and the player has seemingly been interested in coming to FSU for for whatever reason. Okay, but it's kind of like going back to just general dating. If you have someone that wants to be in a relationship and somebody that says they want to be in a relationship, but they really don't really want to have that commitment to be in a relationship, a lot of times, think about it. How many times has this happened to you, or somebody this has happened to? You have someone who's really genuine. Hey, I want to be in a relationship. I want to be in a committed relationship, and somebody will say they want to, but then then they got all this little nefarious stuff going on or whatever. But they'll tell you what you want to hear to get what they want, and then once they get what they want, then they exit stage left or whatever, right? And that's really the what it comes down to. You have players that are telling the coaches, or the camps are telling the coaches one thing, and ultimately deciding to do something else. And I had somebody on social media say, well, the coaches should know, they shouldn't be caught off guard by this stuff happening, or they should have people in place to be close to the camp and to figure out that this guy doesn't want to be here, or they're just playing around or whatever. And guys, listen, this isn't a video game. I mean, if you've never heard this before, hopefully this will ring true to you. People will only allow you to know what they want you to know. Right? Now look, if if I don't want you to know certain things, I'm only going to communicate certain things to you. No matter what you ask me. Going back to the relationship, if you say, "Hey, are you cheating on me?" Of course I'm not. If nobody's going, they're not just going to tell you, "Yeah, I'm doing that" or whatever. They're going to, try to hide some things or whatever. And just like say, "Hey, I heard that you've been visiting Alabama, or I heard you've been visiting Georgia, or whatever," and you know the coach and the player can say, you know, "No, I didn't go," or whatever. I mean, all you can do is take their word for it. Now, you may have some contradictory evidence, or know some people at those schools that can confirm that happened or whatever. But if the player and the parents or the guardians or whomever are already not being truthful as far as that goes, um, that's something taken to consider. But if the player and the camp are already telling you, or not being truthful to you, in certain regards, then that kind of tells you all you need to know. Because if they're going to tell you, or not be truthful about things like that, when it comes to, hey, are you putting the extra work in whenever we're away from school, or are you putting extra film work in the way I asked you to? You know, if you're not just being truthful and doing what you're saying you're going to do, then that's probably a good indicator that it's not going to be a good fit down the road, right? And then also you got these, sometimes it's not the player, sometimes it's just a sheer camp around the player. The player may want to go to a certain school, but you have parents that are really involved, and they may want other things, right? And so you may say, well, it's up to the staff to win that parent over, so to speak. But at the same time, it goes back to, well, if the parent isn't communicating effectively or being truthful in certain regards, you can only go on what you're being told. So if a a parent or whomever is just saying all the right things, I mean, yeah, I guess there's certain ways you can pick up, or you can use some discernment to say, oh, okay, well, this doesn't feel right or whatever. But again, if they continue to tell you, not what you want to hear, what you think is the truth, I mean, there's only so much you can do, as far as that goes. And so ultimately, the players that wind up at FSU are the players that want to be at FSU. So these guys that have flipped and gone elsewhere, I mean, if you look at it in hindsight, there's some things that have kind of revealed themselves, so to speak, that, ultimately, I think they probably would not have been a fit at FSU. Either that or um, Mike Norvell would have had to hold these guys accountable and not allow them to do certain things. So, look, the guys at the FSU that signed yesterday, they want to be there. The guys that went elsewhere, they're where they want to be. So, that is what it is. But the staff, they have an excellent track record as far as closing. It doesn't look great because you have one or two guys, well, really one. I mean, really, it's like one for the last 3 years to flip on early signing day. But if you look at it in totality, that's three guys out of what, probably, what's that, 40, close to 40, something like that, players that have signed. I mean, that's that's an excellent close rate. I mean, when you look at the other schools around the country, all of them have players that are flipping. Flipping is nothing new. Players flip all the time. They flipped 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever. It's going to happen next year, even more so probably now because of the way the landscape is with NIL, and it's the wild, wild west out there. So it's nothing new. But people saying that the staff, need to change, be more aggressive, as far as calling people all the time, and or texting people all the time and just badgering them like some other schools. Look, that makes no sense, because people will only tell you what you want to hear. They'll only allow you to know what they want you to know. And then ultimately, like I said, if you have to pressure kids so much, and I mean, basically, I mean, force them to sign with you, I mean, that's probably not going to work out well. And while you'll see a lot of guys hitting the portal after 1 or 2 years, and there's prime examples of FSU, even with FSU. I mean, if you go back to Sam McCall was a 5-star player. Sam McCall came in, highly rated player. You signed him. You happy you signed him. But Sam McCall, he, for whatever reason, couldn't really get on the field, and ultimately didn't contribute a thing at FSU, and then went on to transfer. And so, yeah, you signed that guy, but it's like he, for whatever reason, he decided he didn't want to be there anymore, and he's gone. So listen, it's not the end of the world if these kids flip. Yes, it's not a great look optics wise, but at the end of the day, you got the guys that wanted to be at FSU, the guys that or communicating effectively, being truthful. Because listen, there are schools that came after a lot of guys that signed with FSU yesterday. Luke Cromahawk, Georgia was after him. Cameron Davis. I mean, some of these receivers, a lot of schools are after these guys, but they wanted to be at FSU. They communicated effectively with the staff, and they signed. So great job by the staff in closing those guys. That's an excellent close rate. Only losing one player. Yeah, he's a highly rated guy, but I talked about it in the article I wrote on Chop Chat. Safety is not a position that kills you if you lose a player. I mean, you signed the most important player yesterday in Luke Cromahawk, a quarterback, and you hit a lot of different needs on the roster as far as O-line, wide receiver, defensive backs. Now there are some areas they need to improve upon, but I mean overall, it's an excellent class. But I just wanted to kind of put it out there as far as like the narratives that even FSU people, as far as some talk, not talking heads, but media guys. I think it's more so these guys that cover FSU are probably upset that they look bad because their predictions were wrong, or it just looks totally crazy. That a guy said, "Hey, I knew where I was going to go 3 weeks ago," and some guys were projecting him to stay with FSU. So I think it's more so they're upset about them looking bad in that respect, more so than anything else. And again, whomever your sources are, they're only as good as communication given to them, the information given to them. So if people are telling your sources what they want to hear and not being truthful, there's nothing you can do about it. because you don't know what their ultimate motive is or whatever. All right. So that's it. It's not rocket science. The coaching staff, they don't need to change a thing as far as being based on relationships, because what they've done over the last 4 years has gotten FSU to where it is now. I mean, just finished a 13-0 undefeated season. Should have been competing for a spot to win a national championship. The system they have in place is fine. Are there areas that need to improve? Yes, we'll probably talk about those in another episode. But as far as being relationship based and getting guys that want to be here, they do an excellent job of getting those guys, and you can see the quality of player has improved each and every year. Could they have gone out there and signed 5 or 6 more 3-star players and gotten a top 5 class? Yes, absolutely. No question. But at the same time, that would have been a waste of resources. They can use those resources better going to the portal and getting some players. So don't get hung up on the whole, they should have had a top 5 class or whatever. They could have had one if they wanted. They could have had that if they wanted it. If you look down at the guys down south, they got a ton of just projects and filler guys, and that's the only reason they're ranked ahead of FSU right now. So kudos to the staff. Yes, there's things to improve upon, but they signed an excellent class yesterday, and just wanted to put it out there. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll probably have a couple more videos here soon for you guys. Appreciate you guys so much for your support, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Go Noles.